Do you want to talk about your mental health? Well, you've come to the right place. I'm your host. You can call me Horse. Why the long face?
Hello, and you're very welcome back to another episode of Why the Long Face, a podcast with me, Horse O'Keefe. Halloween is coming up, lads. I do not like Halloween. I'm an awful scared person. Like, I get scared very, very easily. Like, anyone who knows me, I jump fucking constantly. Is that due to trauma? Yes. Are we discussing that? Not this week. What we are talking about is the horror films that I genuinely actually do like, and the fact that the main villain of these horror movies I genuinely think actually has a point. Of course, we'll have the regular segments. We will have movie of the week. We will have straight from the horse's mouth. So, fucking messing time is over. Let's get into it. So, I've never been shy about talking about my dislike for horror movies in the past. I do enjoy the classics, like, you know, like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all of those, because they were new, because they were trying to push the limits of what you could do. I don't like modern horror movies in the slightest. I have yet to see a really good one. I just find that they're all really cheap, really shitty jump scares. It's not hard to make a horror movie when the main source of your scare is coming from a jump scare. It's not. Now, I might sound like the most pretentious fucking up my own arse film critic now, but I don't think it's hard to write a horror movie, especially with the way that the modern ones are. It's just all jump scares and it's just done with music. For me, the best horror movies, it's all about the tension. It's all about building it up. It's about what you don't see, not about what you do see, and not having a fucking cat just jumping out in front of you and you're going, ah! Or like, oh, these two young girls are walking into a forest. Why the fuck are they doing that? I get angry at watching horror movies. One, because I'm absolutely fucking terrified, because I know that I'm going to jump out of my skin, and generally I would watch them with someone, and 9 times out of 10 that person ends up bursting their whole laughing at me because I look like I'm going to shit myself for the entire 90 minutes, 120 minutes, whatever the fucking run time of the film might be. That being said, there is a horror movie series that I genuinely love. Now, are they the best films in the world? No, by fucking no means whatsoever. Just because I'm mad into films doesn't mean that every time I sit down to watch a film, it's this really deep, really out there movie. I don't. I watch shit movies just as much as the next man or woman or person does. And these movies in particular, you've probably, I would safely say the majority of you would have at least seen 1 or 2 of them. Maybe not all of them, maybe not all of them in marathons like I have watched them. If any of you have followed my TikTok, you probably have an idea of what's coming, but the film series that I want to discuss is the Saw franchise. Now, the Saw franchise had very, very humble beginnings. It started off originally as a short film made by James Wan and Lee Wanell, who then ended up going on to make the first Saw movie. Now, the first Saw movie, when it came out, was very, very kind of new and very out there, and it didn't have a big budget. Now, the budget was $1 million, but in the grand scheme of things, that is not a big budget movie at all. Like, Danny Glover is in the first movie. They had him for like a day, 2 days max, something mental like that. You know, and so it was very cleverly done. Like, majority of the film was all filmed in this one little bathroom. And it's very, very tense. And there's these plot twists, and you don't know what's happening. And then, obviously, yes, it's gory. Now, again, before anyone kind of comes for me, I'm fully aware that maybe most people wouldn't classify Saw as a horror movie. I do, right? And for the purposes of this, it is a horror movie. It's my podcast. I can say whatever it is that I want. If I want to turn around and say that my favourite horror movie franchise is Paddington and Paddington 2, you can't argue with me on that. I'm the boss here. Right. Anyway. So the first one came out, and it was like an overnight success, like, and they did not anticipate the amount of success at all. They had kind of danced around the idea of making a second one, but any kind of future plans further than that, they did not exist at all. They did not kind of see that there was going to be massive longevity to this as a franchise. Now again, you could argue that they probably should have stopped after 1 or 2 and they didn't, but anyway, I don't want to spoil too much out of the Saw franchise if you haven't seen it, because I would genuinely think people should sit down and watch them. But the main villain does die in the third one. Now, that's not really a spoiler because most people would know that. But yet there's 10 movies now, right? Now, you could say that's them dragging the arse out of it. I genuinely think it's quite clever writing. And again, this will actually lead into how I think he kind of has a point. But I don't want to get too deep into that just yet. So, like I said, there's 10 films. There's 7 that kind of follow the same like timeline, like literally one after the other. Then the 8th one that comes out is a prequel. The 9th one that comes out is a story that's told in the same universe but isn't a direct sequel. And now we have the 10th one, which takes place between the first and the second movie. So it kind of has gone a bit awkward kind of towards the end of the franchise, but I still really appreciate it, and for the most part they are still telling quite a solid story. Of course there's plot holes. You're not going to have any franchise with 10 movies that doesn't have plot holes, but I genuinely just think that as movies, as a franchise, before, like, they did a massive franchise before massive franchises were a thing. You know, like before Marvel did it, before fucking, you know, fair enough, you had Harry Potter and stuff, but it wasn't as big a thing in the mid to early 2000s for kind of films to be all part of the same franchise. Now, I think, again, horror movies are the ones that have kind of pushed that a small bit. Like, there's countless Friday the 13th and, you know, Jason versus Freddy's, and fucking even Leprechaun has a crazy amount of films in it. So I know that horror films were kind of pushing the whole franchise thing before any other genre kind of did. A couple of the reasons why I like Saw. I think Tobin Bell is an amazing actor. For a man who obviously hasn't done that many roles outside of playing this one character, he does a phenomenal job. And different movies, he kind of has different amounts of screen time, but it doesn't make a difference. He's such a presence in the film. His voice is so perfect. Like, they really looked into someone who just had a fucking scary ass voice. And even again, like, as the movies go on, you kind of learn his backstory. You do actually start feeling for him. And it was as I literally was watching him recently, and it was as part of watching him that I kind of developed kind of empathy for him, I suppose, in a way. And it kind of dawned on me that, Jesus, do you know what? Maybe he does have a slight point. The obviously the special effects are fucking ridiculously good. Like, you don't think of Saw and not think of at least one of the traps, or just how gory in general it is. Now, that might be too much for some people. That's fine. I would rather watch gore and someone chopping their foot off any day of the week than watch some shitty psychological horror film that's supposedly gonna fuck me up and is just a lot of stupid, shitty jump scares. I do get quite passionate about horror films. I don't like them. I don't see how sitting down for an hour and a half knowing that you're going to be scared is in any way a fun experience for anyone. And if you do enjoy horror films, there's probably something slightly wrong with you, but that's okay, because you're here and you're on my mental health podcast, and we're going to help you and we're going to get you through it. Something that you might not know about me in relation to kind of movies, I am an absolute whore for a good film score. Like, I fucking love them so much, and Saw has such an iconic and such a good fucking theme. And obviously it changed throughout the films, kind of like different films had slightly different variations of the same theme, but when you heard that theme coming in, you knew shit was about to go down. You knew that something big was about to fucking happen. And it just, even now, I've seen the film so many times, I know what the twists are. I genuinely still get like the hair standing up. I get the goosebumps and everything. It's just, I just love it. I just fucking love it, in case you hadn't hadn't been able to tell. Now, again, you're probably wondering, Horse, what the fuck are you on about? Jigsaw is a fucking serial killer. He puts people into these awful traps and basically gets them to maim themselves in order to get out of them. How the fuck are you gonna tell us that he has a point? I promise you I haven't had some sort of psychotic break. I am not condoning what he did in any way, shape or form. And after the break, I will get into exactly what it is that I'm talking about. So please bear with me. Please do not call the guards. I am okay. I'm not going to start killing people. But I genuinely think I'm onto something here. But before we get into that, we're going to do Movie of the Week.
I watched the film this week. I ain't gonna talk about it. Movie of the week.
Now, I do understand the irony of doing a Movie of the Week within a podcast where I'm talking about movies. And just to fuck with it even more, I'm actually not even going to discuss one of the movies that I am talking about in the main body of the podcast. So, as I said on the last podcast, I have tried to push myself over the last month, coming up to Halloween, and have tried to watch more horror films. And I went to the cinema to see the new Exorcist the Believer. Was that what it's called? I can't even remember what the name of it was. That's how unimpressed I was by it. But I went anyway. It's not good, lads. It's just not. Now again, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy horror films at the best of times. I especially don't enjoy them in the cinema, because it's bigger and it's louder, and then there's more people around me to see me jumping. Like I didn't go on my own. There was people there with me. But I was also very conscious of the fact that the people were there with me, and I was trying not to jump out of my skin. I did still jump out of my skin because of stupid fucking jump scares. But aside from that, the first 10 minutes of the film genuinely had me. It genuinely did. It was quite sweet, it was quite wholesome, and then there was a kind of a bit of a twist, and you're like, oh fuck, oh, that's not ideal. And I kind of thought I knew where they were going with it, and I kind of liked it. And then it just kind of took a fucking turn. The main two reasons why I did not like it. One, in the trailer they make a big fucking deal about the lady from the first Exorcist film coming back. Now, this isn't just beef that I have with this film in particular. This is beef that I have with majority of kind of legacy sequels that are coming out. They make it out that like, oh, we're going to bring back this character, isn't it great? Your one was in the film for about 10 minutes, I'd say. The whole thing, about 10 minutes. Does fuck all, to be honest. She's there, and then she's gone away again. She doesn't die, it's not a spoiler. She's there, and then she's not there. And right, okay, fair enough. But if, like, it's this shitty fucking marketing where they're like, oh, put her in it, they'll think she's in it, and it'll bring in a lot of people, and then she's not in it. But they already have your money at that point. So then you feel like a fucking dope. The second reason why I did not like it, and again, a lot of films are doing this. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I am in no way against inclusion and bringing different ethnicities and different religions or whatever it might be into the forefront of cinema, because it needs to be done. What I do not like, and what they did in this film, and they have done in a lot of other films recently, is I do not get the impression that they took their time to study all these different religions. So within this film, religion is obviously quite big. It was big in the first one. It was obviously Catholicism was quite big in the first one. Now we're in 2023. There are so many more religions and so many different things out there. I can see what they were trying to do. I genuinely can, but it just seems like they were like, okay, let's put every religion in the world into a bowl, we'll pick them all out, and we'll just fuck those in there. So the final scene was kind of like the final scene in Avengers Endgame, where all the Avengers come back and they're all fighting together as one against evil. But it was just, instead of Avengers, it was religions. But they just did not do it well at all. There was like these 4 or 5 different approaches to kind of dealing with the exorcism, but they just didn't do it well. It was just all shoehorned in. It was so forced in. It actually hurt my soul, and it completely took me out of the film. Instead of me being like, oh, this is actually quite clever and they're doing this approach and this approach, it was just, oh, Oh, that's also here. When did that get mentioned? Oh, okay. It just like it didn't do the religious aspect of it any justice whatsoever. I do give them props for trying, because more films need to try, but films need to try harder to do it better. Because if you just try and shoehorn it in and you make a hames of it, it has absolutely no impact. Now again, maybe I'm just really, really hating on it because it was a horror film, and it was a bad horror film, and I felt like it was a waste of my time. However, still give it a go, watch it and see what you think, and let me know. Maybe I'm just an awful bollocks. Maybe this is one where, like, and if you think I'm wrong, that's totally fine. It's just my opinion. Like I said, if it was an action film or a comedy, maybe I wouldn't be as harsh on it, because I actually enjoy those genres more than I do the horror films. But look, we'll just have to wait and see. Right, so I won't leave you in suspense any longer. We'll get into it. Why do I think that Saw has a point? So, in the movies, Saw, Jigsaw, John Kramer, whatever you want to call him, he is diagnosed with brain cancer, meaning that terminal brain cancer, meaning that his life is going to be cut short, and he obviously struggles with that. And he has other kind of traumas that happen in his life that I won't get into because they're spoilery for the movies, and I do, if you haven't seen them, I do kind of want you to go see them some bit. Basically, it all comes to a head. He tries to drive his car off a cliff and tries to do away with himself. Now, he does not succeed, and he fights through the pain, and he kind of comes out the other side of it. And this gives him kind of a new perspective on life, a new appreciation for life almost, that kind of tried to cut his life short. He kind of tried to throw his life away. And so he kind of develops this new mantra for life, that you should not waste it, that you should embrace it, you should try and live every day as if it is your last. He is obviously some sort of kind of psychopath, sociopath, serial killer, whatever. Instead of just living his own life the way he wants to live it, he then sees other people who he kind of sees are wasting their life, are not getting the most out of life, and are not appreciating life the same way that he does. Now, these are the parts that I don't condone, where he then puts them all into these mad traps, forces them to sacrifice something or to put themselves through pain so that then they will also appreciate life the same way that he does. Again, I'll keep kind of hammering this point home. I do not condone that part. I don't condone anyone going out there and deliberately maiming people or putting people in situations where they're going to have to cause themselves harm. He does try and justify this in the film by saying, I'm not making you do anything, I'm just giving you the choice. But I don't think that'd hold up in court now, John, to be very honest with you. I'm more specifically just talking about this kind of the first part that I described. The appreciating your life, the seeing what you have and not necessarily wishing for things that you don't have. So for example, he sees people who have good jobs and are married and have children but are having affairs. Or someone who is a drug addict. Or someone who is just selling themselves out for money just so that they can have a better life. So yeah, I do think he does have a point. I think that when we struggle with our mental health, there's an awful lot of I wish and I hope, and not necessarily an awful lot of active doing. Now I know that probably sounds very harsh, but what I mean is we're in the midst of a mental health battle or a time in our lives where we're particularly down. All we focus on is the bad. All we focus on is, I feel so shit. You wake up in the morning and you're like, oh fuck this, I feel fucking awful. And you sit in bed for an hour, 2 hours, and then eventually you get up and you kind of mope around, and that's fine, because that's literally what your body is telling you to do. Like I'm not telling you that you're wrong in any of this by any means whatsoever. But when we are in that frame of mind, it's very easy to be like, fuck this, I wish I wasn't this way. I wish I could be happy. And it's so hard to beat yourself up and to see all the things that you're not doing and all the things that you don't have. Now, I know I did a podcast a while back on like comparing yourselves and not comparing ourselves to others, and it is kind of similar to that in a way, I suppose, that like It's so easy to beat ourselves up. It's so easy. If it was easier to hype ourselves up as it was to beat ourselves down, the world would be a fucking amazing place. But it's unfortunately it's not. It's a lot easier to be negative and say fuck this and fuck that and I hate myself than it is to say, do you know what? I'm not doing too bad. I've got things going for me. I'm a good person. Now that's also a societal thing because we're deemed as being up our own hole if we say anything nice about ourselves. But we're not here to talk about society. Well, maybe we are. Maybe this is me admitting that I'm just going to become a serial killer and I'm going to start killing all the people who make people's mental health shit. But I don't think that's particularly helpful, to be very honest. So, I know you're probably sitting there now and you're like, Horse, what in the name of fuck are you on about? And are you going to say anything that's actually practical in this episode? Or are you just going to ramble on about a serial killer? I am going to tell you something practical. It'll be very difficult now for me to just sit here and tell you exactly how to go and appreciate your life. You know, I'm good, but I'm not that good. I'm good at talking. I'm not necessarily good at figuring out all the world's problems, you know. But little things that you can do to help you appreciate your life. You're going to sit down. You're going to throw away the phone. You're going to turn off everything. You're just going to sit there on your own. You're going to grab a pen and grab a piece of paper. You're going to write down all the things that you're thankful for. And I know what you're saying, lads. I can hear you. Horse, will you ever fuck off? Every person ever has told me to write shit down. Lads, writing shit down works. If I didn't write shit down, I wouldn't be where I am. And that is 100% a fact. I would not be here if I didn't start writing things down. And this is not an exercise that you have to do all in one go. Absolutely not. This can take you a week. It can take you a month. It can be a list that you continuously add to. Because it's going to be very, very difficult the first time you sit down. And you're going to rattle your brain. So the only thing I'll say to you is when you start, it's the same thing as anything else. It's the same. It's probably the biggest mantra that I'll ever continuously push for you. Don't go for the biggest things first. It's very easy to say, what are you thankful for? My life, my job, my family. No, break those down. Break them all down. What about your job? Do you like the people at your job? Do you like elements of your job? Do you like the fucking coffee machine at your job? Who in your family do you like? Why do you like them? Like, go as granular as you possibly can. I like how when I go to my nana's house, she always has the biscuits there and they're out and they're ready for me. I like when I go to my nana's house that she calls me fucking Smoochie, or I don't fucking know, whatever you call it. My nana does not call me Smoochie. My nana thinks I'm an awful fucking idiot, and she would be right. But anyway, my point is, if you're just gonna write down block things, my life, my car, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my partner, my dog, no. It's like those should be headings. Those should not be the start point and end point of what you're writing. Because the more granular you make it, the more specific that you make it. One, the list is going to be a whole lot bigger, which in itself will make you feel 10 times fucking better. Because you'll get to see every single little thing that you are happy for. I genuinely don't care what it is, lads. I don't care about the content. But I care that you do it right. For yourselves. It can be something so simple as, I like that when I wake up in the morning that I'm all cozy in bed. Something as simple as that. It really is, and I'll keep saying it, and I know that you probably think that I'm repeating myself half the time, and that's because I fucking am, right? It's not about doing the big things, it's about the small things. It's about taking the small steps every day to build towards having consistent contentment in relation to your mental health at some point in the future. Your mental health is the biggest fucking marathon that you're ever going to run in your entire life. 1, you can't run a marathon if you're not prepared. 2, if you go for a marathon and you spend the first 20 minutes absolutely fucking booking it, you're fucked. You're just fucked. You're not going to see the end. Just as simple as that. It is all about the smallest possible things that you can do. Think about it like this, right? Human body. Now, this is me trying to attempt science, so bear with me. But human body, you could just say, right, I'm one person, I have a body. But within that body, you have your skeleton, you have your organs, you have fucking blood vessels, you have fucking lymph nodes, you have all these other things. Break that down again. Break it down to the fucking atom and build up. I'm not here to get into a debate as to whether we were built by a big man in the sky or whether we came from the Big Bang. That's not what I'm saying. But scientifically, it's a fact that at the end of the day, we're all just some massive atoms. I think. I could be totally fucking wrong. But again, you build up from that. Build up. Don't go backwards. Take it from the smallest thing and build up. We started as this. Then we did this. Then we became this. Then you add this. Then you get this bit. Then you get the next little bit. And eventually you have a whole person, or you have a whole whatever. Grant. Fine. Maybe science isn't your thing. Take a fucking cake. Fair enough. You could just go to the shop and buy a cake. But if you wanted to make a cake, I'm going back to my cooking analogies again. I'm mad for the fucking cooking. Anyway, you need to take all those ingredients. You take your flour, you take your sugar, you take your eggs, your vanilla extract, your milk, your whatever. I've never made a cake in my life, in case you hadn't been able to tell. But again, every single bit of that flour is important. Now you think about how fine flour is, especially so you've sieved out the flour. Every single tiny little bit of that flour is important. You leave out half of those bits of flour, it's not going to come out right. You leave out half the sugar, it's not going to be right. You think about how small a little grain of sugar is. Every single one of those grains is important. Right? Are you with me? Do I need to keep coming up with random analogies, or are you actually understanding where I'm at? Every small step that you do, every small little thing that you do, you might not necessarily feel the effect of it straight away, but if you consistently keep up the small little steps, you will see progress. You will see how every single fucking day is important, and especially in relation to your mental health. I'm not saying you can't have bad days. Of course you can. Everyone is entitled to a bad day, a bad few days, a bad fucking week, whatever it might be. That is totally fine. But if you keep up the small little things and slowly build them up, you will see the progress. You will start to appreciate your life. I would much rather you go through the pain and the torture of writing all this shit out, trying to start doing the small things, because it's not easy. It genuinely can be quite painful and quite taxing to try and start implementing all these small little changes into your day. I know for a fact it can, but I would so much rather hear that ye have put in the time and gone through that pain and the torture of trying to implement all these things, than to hear that you hate yourselves, to hear that you hate your life, to hear that you don't think you have anything to live for. Everyone has something to live for. Life is there to be lived. Lads, that's me done. I wanted to keep it a little bit more simplistic, a little bit shorter. It was just a point that I really wanted to get across, that I understand, I genuinely understand that everything that I say on this podcast and everything that I say on the TikTok or wherever it is a lot easier said than done. I know that. And I also fully aware that if you are an avid listener and you have listened to every episode, that it does quite sound like I'm repeating myself an awful lot. One, I repeat myself because repetition is key. Repetition is key for two reasons. One, if I don't keep saying it, you won't listen. Two, you have to learn repetition, and repetition is quite important in your life, especially in relation to everything that I've just said. A lot of the time you're going to be repeating the same steps every single day, so you might as well just get used to the repetition. Also, another slight reason why the podcast might seem like I'm repeating myself a lot is I don't necessarily want this podcast to be that you strictly have to listen to every single episode every week to understand. You don't. I meet new people all the time. New people pop in and out of the podcast all the time. The podcast is designed in such a way where you could listen to this episode now, you could go back and listen to the 4th episode, then you could listen to the 15th episode. Because I'm trying to target such a wide audience, I want them to just be accessible. So just because I've said something today doesn't necessarily mean that it'll fit. You could have listened to everything I've said today and been like, what the fuck is that man talking about? But you could listen to an episode from 6-7 months ago and be like, you know what, that actually kind of works, I'm going to do that. Because everyone is different, everyone has different traumas, everyone has different life experiences. I'm trying to cover such a wide blanket of people. So if you do think I am repeating myself, yes, you're right, I am. But I'm repeating myself with a purpose. So Halloween is coming up. Please make sure you mind yourselves. Please enjoy it. Also, just could have a fun game with the podcast on Halloween night. Listen to this podcast on Halloween, and every time I say saw, take a drink. There you go, you'll be fucked up in no time. All jokes aside though, please have a good Halloween. Enjoy your spooky season. And more importantly than absolutely anything else, mind yourselves.